Hello everyone, this is the sixth video from the middle game series. I realized there was one specific fuseki which appeared quite a lot of times recently in the games with my students, and it contains a lot of interesting middle game continuations. This situation is kind of an old school one, because I guess in these days we will rarely see this long extension after white answers black's kakari, but it's still quite widely used, and I'm sure especially single digit cube players will use a lot of variations, which I will show. Let's start if it's black's turn here. This would be the move if black wants to start in expanding the top side and at the same time reducing white's potential on the left side. So this would be a classic middle game move, which I definitely recommend to use. And also, if you have this jump already in its place, it's strengthening possible invasions into the corner or eventual pincer from the other side. That's why quite often white immediately answers here, and then black is thinking about what to do next. Black can, for example, play this shorter hit and then play here, keep expanding the top side, and if this whole board situation allows it, this can be very interesting moyo. If black wants to be a bit more territorial, then the usual move is this Kosumitsuke, which should be usually answered, because if white doesn't answer, then black has a very strong continuation to play this clamp. And now white has to let black connect under, or white tries to play like this, but then black can reduce white a lot on the side and basically push him on the second line, and that's not so great for white. That's why white usually is forced to answer, and the best move is this one. Because if white would connect solid, which is also possible, then black will get this endgame in center. White can also try to get this move first, which is kind of defending the corner but still leaving a lot of aji, but there is one premise. Black cannot exchange this Atari, because this Atari is not a gain for black, and this exchange neither. I know this is a bad habit of a lot of cube players, so please don't play this Atari, and also don't make this exchange, because it doesn't really give you anything, and on the other hand it helps the opponent. So usually the best is just to connect here, which gives black a very solid shape and still is leaving a lot of aji in the corner, like for example the clamp or the peep. And I think if black gets to play there first, it's not that easy for white to kill black. White actually often reinforces the shape like this, then probably it's already a bit harder to get something in the corner, but still there is a lot of troubles also with the endgame, for example, because white usually has to answer this way, but it's already a different topic. But it's really good to remember here that this move is very big for black as a continuation, and then white usually defends here, and if white defends here, then black has to connect the stone. There is no other possibility like an Atari or D15 peep or anything like that. So this is kind of all what can happen after black plays the jump up. So let's take a look what are some other choices which black may try here. Of course, if black would like to play some kind of large scale strategy, then black can play, for example, this. White pushes up, black plays here, and now black's shoulder hit is not only reducing the left side, but it might also work together with the stone at the top side. So I think this is also quite a good way how to play. And if some of you are studying a lot with AI, then you might be able to find this a bit strange middle game joseki in some pro games in these days, which is approved by AI. So this is one of possible continuations, but somehow I feel like white should probably prefer to separate black somehow, because this is just giving black a very nice connection together. And so probably I would expect white will play either some separation move like this one, or maybe even Ogema here. So I think white shouldn't let black communicate together that easily in this area. However, if you want to play a large-scale shoulder hit, is also the very interesting continuation. In the past, this schema used to be a very popular move, which is not in these days. The reason why we don't play this schema, especially this situation anymore, is that if white blocks the corner, now black has to reinforce this for sure, and it's not ideal. Not only this invasion becomes more severe, because black lost the possibility to invade on Sansan, but also why would black make this exchange if after this move the invasion on Sansan is so severe? If we want to play like this in this situation, there must be some very specific reason for that. So we want to extend to the center like this after exchanging the 18. But I would usually prefer not to exchange this right away. I would always recommend for black to jump up directly. White's corner is relatively solid, but black still has some continuation. This move is straightforward variation which is very popular in these days, and this would be probably a topic for some other lesson like joseki lesson or something like that, but a lot of joseki variations you just need to count that there is one more stone here, so the variations might slightly change, or just the whole board situation is not completely empty. Like there is a move at k16 which is slightly changing some variation. For example, if we just keep this usual variation like this, then everything is normal. There is maybe just one change. Black can actually try this double hane, because if white tries to cut and then play Atari, now k16 is in a very good position. But sometimes white also wants to get this move, so now this is forcing black to answer somehow. So black has to answer like this either, or black can actually even thinking about pushing up, but there is a lot of agi after this cut, like around this area at the top side. So that's something black has to be a bit careful about. For example, if we would like to enter this variation, it's a bit easier for black to run with these stones, because it's not really easy for white to run if there is already a stone at k16, or maybe white will be able to run, but at the same time it will not be that easy to make some base afterwards at the top side. So that's something we need to be careful about, and that's probably why white will not choose this move. But there is also a possibility that black will make an exception and choose to cut here and not to connect under, because after this variation happens, white's wall is very solid as usual, but k16 is kind of reducing the wall from the top side on the outside. So that's something white needs to pay attention on. As I have already said, after this attachment and hane, which is very popular joseki variation in these days, the variations might be slightly changed if black has already a stone at k16. However, it's also possible how to continue in the middle game. Like if black doesn't want to directly attack the Sansan, there is also a possibility that black might actually attach, and attach is also definitely a better move than just this came out. Sansan is a valid move here, and there are some interesting middle game josekis which we might be happy to use. We should remember white should never block from this side. Black extends, now black's corner is too big and white will not get anything from that. Like even if white just extends, black can just protect. There is not much else white can do, and also black is too solid. This would be a very good result for black. White will be only thinking about this move. Black plays this hane, which is the best move locally. White has two options. White can block, that's the easier one. Black will play this hanging connection, and now white has to exchange this Atari, because if white doesn't, then black will get this exchange in center. And also, let's say in the later middle game, white might also be thinking about how to continue here locally. White can continue like this. It looks a bit vulgar, but white's shape is actually becoming stronger. And if the top side is not that big, then white can just give these points to black, and maybe white can think about continuing pushing. That's why this move, even though it looks strange, it actually works pretty well. There might be some specific situation when black might think about resisting, then play something like this and live in the corner, but I'm not sure if it's worth it, because even though black managed to live in the corner and got the stone at f16, white still managed to break in through black's territory. So there must be a really specific situation that black will not be answering this move. Normally black should just automatically answer here. White hanes, black extends, and black can extend later as well. But anyway, this is also very important middle game stuff, because these are also classic moves on the border of spheres of influence, and it's very important to get there first, because if white doesn't play there, I'm pretty sure black will very soon, and also black already included some extra points in the corner, so black will be probably very happy to get the corner and also the jump at f5. What happens if white separates? This becomes slightly more complicated. Black connects, white plays this move, black plays Keima. Now white has two choices. The basic one is this one. Black pushes up and white blocks. Black will probably make this exchange. Now black should come back here, because if black doesn't, then white will just play hane, push, and white can directly kill black this way. This exchange doesn't do much. It helps black outside, but even without this exchange, black would be still in danger in the corner. So it's always part of the joseki that black will come back. In the middle game, it often happens that there are already a lot of helping stones around. If there would be also some stones on the left side, and we can already see there are some stones at the top side, this cutting point can be dangerous. maybe sometimes we would like to avoid this. Of course, it would be great to finish this way as white, but sometimes this cut can be dangerous. Even though black might be locally dead in the corner now, black has a lot of liberties there, and this move can be dangerous. So that's something we need to be careful about. So that's why white will just play this move, black will extend, and now white can either come back like this, make the solid shape this way, that's one of the choices, or if the left side is not so interesting, white might just reinforce the shape this way. And even though we might maybe find c13 a bit painful, if the left side is not that interesting, I can imagine this variation may happen. Also, if we want to play a bit more active, I can imagine white will play a pincer here. And again, this hane will not be that extremely painful. So this is something we might remember. This coming back and tenuki is actually a very interesting sequence which you might try in your games. We have this jump if we want to expand the top side and reduce white's left side. We can also try it a bit more in large scale at d13. There used to become popular in the past, but in these days probably black will not play it, and in these days more likely black will attach this way, which is a modern straightforward move. And Sun invasion, if we want to be territorial, I can imagine c17 is possible as well. Now we can check out what happens if it's white's turn. Let's start with something simple. White can just defend the corner this way if white wants to be territorial. This stone is in danger because if black doesn't answer there, white might be invading here, and now f17 is facing a lot of white stones. So quite often black reinforces here as well, and black has two options for that. Black can jump up here, which is something we have already seen, but now it's white's turn. White will probably not want to let black play at e18, and if white doesn't want to keep energy here or something like that, white will probably immediately play this endgame. And even though it's endgame, it's actually super urgent, because this is just so big that white will probably play it as soon as possible. For example, Lee Chang-ho, who used to be the best world's player 20 years ago, he was actually loving this sequence. He was always playing it as soon as possible. He was even able to play it at move 50 or something like that. I can also imagine white will play this very soon. And if black doesn't want white to get this comfortable endgame, black can also kick here. Black will be, of course, very happy if white answers this way, but in this case, white will play like this, and then hane. Then double hane, and black will peep, create a bad shape for white, but actually it's not that big problem, because white's shape is not great, but captured black in the ladder here, and also c17 cannot live directly. Like there is some agi, like from the outside, also something with the hane at d19 or attachment at b14, but black cannot live directly. So I think like this, white is not complaining, even though the shape is not perfect. So this is actually kind of a joseki variation. Also, please remember the order of moves. First peep here, and then this atari to make white's shape look funny, but that's all you can do. Actually, white is not complaining. Also, we have already mentioned that this atari is not good. Even though we would, of course, prevent white's turn at f16, still it doesn't change the fact it's not clear from which side black should connect now. But the most important fact is black protected all of white's agis inside, and that's something what black probably didn't want to do. Black wanted to leave some agis inside. And as I said, these stones are still relatively weak due to these cutting points, so it's not easy for black to find a good continuation. White has also another possibilities how to defend the corner, for example kick, but we have to be careful. If the top side is big and black has a very big potential there, then this exchange is not preferred. Even though white gets a very strong corner, still this exchange is not always good. Also, we should keep in mind that the corner is still not 100% white, so white should usually continue here, either go down or play hane and connection. And this hane and connection is interesting because even though it looks slow, it has a very severe continuation here on the clamp or here on the peep. So black often reinforces here, which makes black slightly over-concentrated, but black is also very strong locally, so black is not complaining. This kick actually is a move which we are always teaching to beginners, but used in high-level games. Still, we need to be careful with this exchange because we are leaving agi behind c17, and also this exchange is not always good because black is expanding the top side. These are probably the most territorial moves which white can think about. Of course, there are some alternative choices like this one or this one, but they are not that common, I would say, due to a few reasons. Like this move looks slow, this move is just showing black to play here, so there must be some specific situations when these moves are good, but normally not. This Ogema is a move which is white trying to reduce the top side and expand the left side, and it's actually being used quite often. If black answers like this is just an exchange, I wouldn't say it's good for white, but of course if white is building the left side, his strategy is probably working. This should be fine for both sides. But if black doesn't answer, which is also possible, after white plays here, the continuation is strong, but black still has an opportunity to live in the corner or play something like attachment and hane into the corner. So that's why I think black doesn't have to be worried not to answer here. But it's possible because black will get a lot of points and then white can, for example, finish the shape this way. That's one of the possibilities. Or he can fix the shape this way. That looks also quite nice, I think. So these are the main possibilities for white, which white can try here. You might be also asking what happens if black tries to cut. Well, black can try, but it's actually not so useful. Like, white can still play here, black will probably make a bamboo, and white can push few times here. And even though black managed to swallow white stone at g15 in quite a large scale at the top side, white also got a very nice compensation on the left side. White can also just still block here, or white cannot just reinforce the shape here and keep this ag alive. So I think these are the best variations white might try. Of course, white might also think about saving out this stone, but that might actually enter a very unnecessary fight. But this really depends on the whole board situation, because this fight can get very complicated after this crosscut. So I wouldn't call it a middle game joseki anymore. This would be just a fight. I would usually recommend to sacrifice the stone from the outside. Black just wants to get some points at the top side. I would usually recommend to play this move or just to tenuki, because if white plays at the top side, f17 still has a lot of maneuver possibilities. Now we can finally talk about some invasion for white and what are the possibilities. If white plays this move, probably black will connect under very easily. So usually white doesn't play g16. Also, white doesn't invade from this side because black has a possibility to connect under it. Like if white tries to play like this, black will cut from upstairs and now white has a problem. White probably cannot get to solve all of the troubles this way or this way. White can also start from here, but I think black's block immediately looks very clear. So j70 is also not a move. Attachment so deep inside also doesn't look great. Black will be probably able to surround white somehow from the outside. The most common moves are this invasion and this attachment. The attachment often leads to variations which also are coming from the move at h17. So we will be mostly reviewing h17 here. Like for example, if we start with this variation, then we can also get it like this. The only difference is that if white plays this attachment, black has also some other choices, like black can think about going down or going up, but then it will become a fight between a stone at j16 and f17. And this hane probably will not be recommended very often because then white will get a very strong shape after playing f16. So let's talk about this invasion. Like this is a very famous move and it happens very often. So black has several choices what to play here, and we also need to pay attention on the ladder a bit. If black wants to keep the game simple, block from this side. But black can do this move only in case black has already something here. Like for example, black has a corner in this area. Definitely think about blocking here, and if black blocks here, well, now if white tries to capture the black stone, now black can still get a compensation in the corner like this, and I guess black is not complaining because white really didn't capture much. White can also block the corner, and now this is kind of a specific situation because black can connect from here, but white can also connect from here. So sometimes it happens that nobody plays here at the moment because there are connection ways for both sides, so it's not that interesting area. However, this happens relatively often. This Kosumi is sometimes possible, but black has to be very strong around, because normally if white plays here and black plays hane, white will break through the shape this way, and even after white gets slightly bad shape after this Atari, I think white is not complaining, because now the Kosumi of black is getting very weak, and white's shape is actually surprisingly strong, even though it doesn't look that solid and it's not so nice looking, so black usually doesn't use this Kosumi. Black can also keep the game simple by playing directly to the corner, or first force white to play here and then enter the corner. That's probably more common because black already got some positive exchange from the outside. Black is also expanding this influence and still managed to sacrifice the stone at f17 in a very good way by invading to the sun. So I think this is definitely possible. So now let's proceed to this move, which is probably the most popular one, and the idea is clear. Black is trying to making these stones link up together. So how can white reply? We need to pay attention on the ladder, because if white wants to play this wedge, then white really needs to have both ladders working on both sides. Because for example, if this ladder is not working for white, white is in trouble after this. If this ladder is not working for white, white is also in trouble. So this is something we need to keep in our minds. If we want to play this invasion and then the wedge, we need to have both ladders working. And if we don't have one of the ladders working, we should probably just extend. Now black has probably three choices, I would say. Black can either block like this, which is useful in case black has a very huge potential in the top right side. Now black has to give up the stone at f17. What's very important here in this sequence, not to make this exchange, because now black just helped white, killed his own stone, and still black needs to come back like this solid or in a flexible way this way. So black lost center. On the other hand, if black connects here or some hanging connection, white still needs to protect here, because if white doesn't, then black has a very interesting agi to start here. And now these white 5 stones are in a very big danger. So that's why white often needs to play like this, then usually something like this happens. This is actually quite an interesting middle game joseki, but nothing special for white, because white got a lot of stones here and they are not very effective. They are strong, but they are not very effective in building something. So white usually comes back here. Of course, f17 is still not 100% dead. Like if black gets some helping stones from the outside, black might be still thinking about invading the corner, but white's corner is quite big at the same time. So black's potential here has to be really big to be able to play this variation. Black can also come back like this, but this is actually a bit slack, because then white will be able to live like this very easily. And also we shouldn't forget there are 2 cutting points on the outside, and especially these cutting points will be quite annoying if white starts to play like this, breaking the ladder. Now it's not clear if black wants to connect on one of the sides, and white doesn't have to cut here directly. White can also just think about playing some sequence like this, and white is already very happy to get some positive exchanges. So I think usually black will not come back like this. Black can also connect solid here. White can push here, hane. If black extends, white gets a lot of points on the side. Also, thanks to the clamp at e17, white is able to connect all around the side and get all of the points there. Of course, in some situations, black influence will be huge. So in the past, this used to be a popular joseki, but I feel like in these days, nobody will probably prefer black to be some very specific situation. Like if something like it's there, then it's probably fine. Otherwise, white is considered to have too many points on the top side. Black can sometimes come back this way, so white plays here, black plays here, white plays this hanging connection, black will probably invade the corner, so something like this can happen as compensation. So this is also kind of a middle game joseki. Honestly, I don't prefer black much, especially when black has already some stones in this area, but it happens in some pro games even recently, so maybe it's also because white's shape is not ideal, that's why black is probably acceptable, but honestly I wouldn't be so happy here as black, but it's a possibility for sure. If white has the ladders working, and also white believes that black's outside will be too strong, white can wedge here. But first of all, we should say that we should never play this way, because there is no reason why to make the exchange at g16 and g17, because now black can think about double hane. And the liberty here at g17 is very useful for this sequence. So that's why please don't make this exchange first, we'll directly wedge. That's the correct move. If black plays from Atari upstairs, it will end up in the way we have already seen. Black comes back here, then this we said black is not very happy. If black plays like this, black can sacrifice the stone in the corner this way. That can be acceptable if black has a very huge potential here. Recently, I have also seen this move in the pro games, but I didn't study it yet much. But somehow I didn't believe in it, because white can probably live like this very easily. Black shape on the outside is a bit better than the clamping one, but still I think black doesn't get enough compensation on the outside. Finally, we will check out this Atari. It's a very interesting variation. First of all, please don't forget to never play here. Like this counter Atari, black just captures and white plays here. And even though white gets a nice corner, this Ponuki is simply too good. So this counter Atari is never acceptable for white. Even if white would try to play like this, black can still find a solution. Now this white 5-stone group is very heavy. So what happens after white extends? We have already said that white's letters are working, because that's the premise for playing J16. If black plays here, white will just capture in the letter, and there is still some core left on the side, so black usually defends here, and this ponuki is usually preferable for white, especially in the middle game. This white will be always very happy to get this ponuki, so this variation is not acceptable. Black can also think about capturing the other side, like capturing this stone, and now white is able to cut this way, and even though white is having a ladder, black can actually just endure this, play this Atari from this side, and black is already alive. So in some situations this is just good enough, and white is in much bigger danger than black. So this can be sometimes actually acceptable for black, even though it might look surprising. That's why white is trying to make this Atari first. Usually black can resist this way, start this core, which is very heavy for both sides, especially for white, because black can actually find a very nice local threat. Black can play this way. Even though it looks like black ended up terribly at the top side, black got some compensation in top left corner, and white stones are also very big there. I tried this in a few games, and it's not that easy to play white here. So that's why white tries to play this Atari, and usually he has to face the core. So that's something white needs to be really careful about. Black can also think about playing from this side, like try to break the ladder. So then white usually plays Atari, extends, black captures this, white plays this move. Now black has to reinforce the shape, and it looks like black is doing well because black got all the points at the top, but it's not that clear because white can still fix the shape like this and connect the line in the center, and there is still this aji. For example, this move will be center, and black's shape is not that perfect. So this is kind of joseki as well, but we shouldn't forget this is actually not that great. But sometimes this move might work. Black wants to get the under connection. Black can actually try this double hane. And like this, black can slightly painfully connect under this way, but sometimes it might work. So this is just an interesting way how to connect under, but we shouldn't try to connect under this way. This is just too painful. So we have reviewed some interesting variations here, and so let's conclude what happens if white plays first here. So white can of course start playing something like some territorial moves like this one, or kick and hane afterwards, and there are also some other options in the corner. Then white has an influence move, which is playing on the border of two influences, which is here. And then white has some invasions possible, like this one or this one. Especially D is very popular, and it's important to know some variations there, because this is really happening often, especially in single-digit Q games. So I hope you have learned something new today, because middle game josekis are sometimes more important than fuseki josekis. So because middle game is usually the most important part of the game, and yeah, if you know some of these variations, then it's much easier to make a decision, and also how to handle the opponent's invasion, for example, or the opponent's continuation. So this was today's topic, middle game josekis, and we have showed this specific one, and I hope you have enjoyed, and see you next time. Bye bye.